Hello world, welcome back to The Sheep and the Wolf. Since today is World Animal Day, I decided to take some books that kind of go with that theme and recommend them. So I picked 3 books from my collection and I'm just kind of going to talk about them. They're not necessarily all about animals, but they definitely tie in with the theme. The first book I want to talk about is Water for Elephants by Sara Gruen. I honestly don't remember how I first heard about this book. I don't know if someone recommended it to me or if I knew that there was going to be a film and decided that I wanted to read the book first, but anyway, I read the book. I think I might have gotten it from the library first, but eventually I decided to buy it, and that's the story of how I got this book. So the story is about Jacob Jankowski, who is an American of Polish descent, and he loses his parents when he is studying at university to be a vet. He then jumps on a circus train, and because of his training as a veterinarian, he is allowed to stay and to help with the animals. The most important one is Rosie, the new elephant, who is very intelligent and who forms a sort of special connection with Jacob. There are a few things in particular that I like about this book, and the first one is the character of Jacob. He's thrown into a world that is completely alien to him because he doesn't know how a circus works, and even though he's good with animals, he's not even a fully qualified veterinarian. But instead of, for example, Thomas in The Maze Runner, who just keeps complaining that he doesn't know what's going on, Jacob kind of deals with his situation in a way that is much more realistic. I mean, he makes mistakes and he misunderstands things, but he also learns and he's good at stuff, and he develops himself in a way that is much more realistic than you see, I think, in YA often when people are just a little bit too perfect at everything. Some of the characters, such as Camel and Walter, are also very well portrayed. I must admit, it's been a while since I last read this book, but I got the feeling that this circus community had already been there for a long time before, we as the reader meet them in the story. Because sometimes in books, when the main character is placed in an environment like this, you get the feeling that the community, didn't exist before they popped up in the story, and that's definitely not the case in this book. They're very well-rounded as a group. For me, this story has the perfect combination of both the romance and the adventure elements. It's a character-driven story, which I love, but it's also set in such an unusual setting that it really just caught my attention from the start. Obviously, I'm not going to tell you anything about the ending, but I will say that to me it was heartbreakingly beautiful, and if you think this story might be for you, I definitely recommend you read it. The second book of today is The Bees by Laline Paull. I read this book in July and I even did a review of it, which I will link down below, so I will keep this brief. The story is set in a community of bees and it follows one bee in particular, Flora 717. The beehive is essentially a totalitarian society where certain classes of bees are in charge. Flora is immediately singled out because she looks completely different from the other bees of her class, and deviation is considered a threat, but she manages to survive and becomes a pretty special bee. The first time I heard about this story was on Essie Button's channel, and I immediately put it on my TBR, but it still took me quite a while to get round to it. I just didn't really go through the effort of buying it, and then I saw it for a good price and I thought, I need to have that book. I quite like dystopian settings, and that's what this is in a way. I was also really blown away by the descriptions of the beehive and all the different rooms with different purposes, and the way that information is transmitted through scents and very kind of subtle signals. It really was a very entrancing world to dive into, and almost a little hypnotic. When I finished this book, it felt like waking up from a dream or something, and again, I definitely recommend this one. Finally, I would like to talk about Life of Pi by Yann Martel. Personally, I like this book a lot. I know that that is not the case for all booktubers. Ariel Bissett, for example, is very vocal about her dislike for this book, which is obviously completely valid and totally fine. I had seen the film before I read the book, which probably contributed to how I experienced the book, because some of the actors were really good and brought a very particular vibe to the story. Anyway, this story is about Pi, whose father is a zookeeper in India, but the family decide to move to Canada. So they load some of the animals and their possessions and themselves on a ship, but the ship is wrecked and Pi manages to survive, and he ends up in a lifeboat with, among others, a giant Bengal tiger named Richard Parker. One of the plot lines is that Pi was brought up to believe that tigers are dangerous and you should stay away from them, which I think is good advice in general, but it doesn't really help him when he's in a tiny lifeboat with a giant tiger. And so he has to learn to assert dominance over the tiger, because otherwise the situation isn't really livable for either of them. It's really interesting to see how kind of a fragile balance starts to form. This book actually won the Man Booker Prize in 2002, which is the year after it was first published, and the film, which came out in 2012, won, I think, 4 Oscars? Yes, winner of 4 Oscars, including Best Director for Ang Lee. Yes, Ang Lee. It's not necessarily a very easy read. Some of the scenes are quite hallucinatory and can be a bit tricky to follow. One of the recurring themes of the book is actually the relativity of truth, so Pi is an extremely unreliable narrator. Like I said, I personally really like this book, although I don't remember all the details now. I'd have to reread it. And if you haven't read it, I would definitely recommend it. So those were the books that I wanted to talk about today. If you have read any of them and you would like to share your thoughts, please feel free to do so down below. I'd love to read what you thought about these 3 books. If you are unsure of picking up any of these books, because this isn't exactly a review video, by all means, contact me and maybe I can give you some more information. If you want to know more about the bees, go take a look at my review video. In other news, I am still trying to get to 1,000 subscribers before the new year, so if you could help me out by maybe sharing this video with your friends, or just tweeting it or putting it on Facebook, that would really mean a lot to me. Thank you for watching. I hope you liked this video, and I will see you again next time.